Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. I'm excited to introduce you to our topic. Unit 10, they said, we said. Today we'll be focusing on grammar, specifically how we report what others have said. We'll look at different ways to quote and paraphrase and explore some useful structures. So let's get started and discover how to communicate these ideas clearly and effectively. When we convert direct to reported speech, we need to pay attention to the tense changes and the use of modals. In the examples on this slide, you'll see how the original direct speech is transformed into reported speech. This process usually involves shifting the tense back in time, like changing present to past, and adjusting modal verbs accordingly. Understanding these rules helps us communicate more accurately when relaying what someone else has said. It's a key aspect of mastering reported speech, which is essential for clear and effective communication in both written and spoken English. Today, we're going to explore reported speech. What do you think our lesson will be about? Let's take a look at these two examples. These will help us understand how we convey what someone else has said. We'll see how to change direct quotes into reported speech, which is very useful in everyday conversations and writing. So, as we go through, keep in mind the key points about transforming sentences and maintaining the original meaning. This will connect to our overall goal of improving our communication skills in English. Now, let's take a closer look at some key points about verb past and noun clauses. When we talk about verb past, we're referring to actions that happened in the past, and noun clauses often serve as the subject or object in a sentence. It's important to remember that sometimes we omit certain elements, like quotation marks or commas, to make sentences more concise or natural. For example, we might omit the quotation marks when the quote is integrated into our sentence, especially if we're adding that or other words to clarify the meaning. Speaking of adding, we often include the word that after verbs like say or think to introduce the clause. When we switch to present tense verbs, we use quotation marks to indicate the exact words someone has spoken or thought, and we generally place commas inside the quotation marks in American English. Now, an essential distinction in this area is between quoted speech and reported speech. Quoted speech involves directly reproducing someone's exact words, often enclosed in quotation marks, like, "I'm happy," she said. Reported speech, on the other hand, paraphrases what someone said without using their exact words. So we might say she said that she was happy, omitting the quotation marks altogether. Recognizing the difference between these two helps us use punctuation correctly and communicate clearly. So, understanding when and how to use verb past, noun clauses, and the right punctuation is key to mastering clear and effective communication in both writing and speaking. Let's take a closer look at some key grammatical concepts here. First, we have noun clauses. These are clauses that act like a noun in a sentence and often start with words like that, what, or who. They can serve as the subject or object of a verb. Next, we see the verb in the past perfect tense, which is formed with had plus the past participle. This tense is useful for showing that one action was completed before another past action. Omitting is a common technique in writing and speech to make sentences more concise. For example, sometimes we omit words like that or even the comma when they aren't necessary. Speaking of that, adding it can clarify the sentence, especially in complex sentences. We also notice the importance of omitting the comma in certain cases to keep the sentence smooth and natural. Moving on, we see the verb in the past tense again, emphasizing actions that happened previously. Quotation marks are used to indicate direct speech or quotations, but sometimes they are omitted when the context is clear. When we see quotation marks again, they highlight direct quotations, and the placement of the comma relative to the quotation marks is important for correct punctuation. Finally, the phrase, another example, signals that we're about to see a different instance or case, which helps reinforce understanding through varied contexts. All of these points tie into the overall theme of understanding sentence structure and clarity in writing, which is essential for effective communication. Let's take a closer look at the progressive forms in English. On this slide, we see a table that highlights the different tense structures. Starting with the present, we use am, are, or is followed by the verb with an ing ending to form the present continuous tense. For example, I am studying. Moving to the past, we use was or were plus the ing form to describe ongoing actions that happened previously, like they were playing. Then we see the next row, which combines the past forms with the perfect aspect. Was or were followed by had been, indicating that an action was ongoing up until a certain point in the past. Similarly, in the present perfect continuous, we use has been or have been plus the ing form, as in she has been working. Finally, the last row shows had been, which is the past perfect continuous tense, describing an ongoing action that was happening before another past event. The key takeaway here is that these progressive forms help us express actions that are ongoing at different times, present, past, or even before another past moment. And combining them with perfect aspects adds nuance about the timing and duration of those actions. This understanding is fundamental to mastering the flow of tenses in English, especially when connecting different time frames in your storytelling or explanations. Let's take a look at exercise C answers. Here, we're diving into how we applied the concepts we've discussed so far. You'll notice that the key points focus on understanding the practical implementation and the reasoning behind each step. This exercise helps us see the real-world relevance of the strategies we've learned. Pay close attention to how these solutions connect to the overall theme of problem-solving and effective decision-making. Remember, the goal is to internalize these methods so they become second nature in your own work. So, as we review these answers, think about how you can adapt these approaches to your specific context. Let's talk about how to change a question into a statement. First, you change the question mark into a full stop. Then, you can use words like if or whether to introduce the reported question, and both mean the same thing. Next, you need to change the tense of the verb if necessary to match the context of your sentence. Also, you might need to change the pronoun to fit the new sentence structure. And don't forget, you should add if to introduce the reported question. For example, if Ali asked me, "Are you ready?" we convert that into a statement by saying, "Ali asked me if I was ready." Notice how the question, "Are you ready?" turns into "if I was ready," with the verb tense shifting from present to past. Another point to keep in mind is that the inversion in the direct question, like "Are you ready?" changes to the normal statement word order in the reported speech. We no longer need the question format. Instead, we use a statement with ask plus if or whether. So, in summary, when turning direct questions into reported speech, focus on changing the question mark to a full stop, use if or whether, adjust the tense, change pronouns as needed, and remember that the word order shifts from question form to statement form. This is a key concept for mastering reported speech in English. Now, let's look at some examples of how we use indirect questions with ask and wonder. For instance, we asked him if or whether the rumor was true. This is a polite way to inquire about something indirectly. Similarly, my sister asked me if or whether I was going to tell her my secret. It's a gentle way to bring up sensitive topics. In another example, the waiter asked the customer if or whether he wanted milk for his coffee. Food service often involves asking questions in this manner. I also asked him if or whether he voted in the last election, which is a common way to inquire about someone's opinions or actions indirectly. Then they asked us if or whether we needed directions, which is helpful and polite when offering assistance. Lastly, she asked her sister if or whether she could get some groceries from the supermarket. Overall, what's important to note here is that using if or whether in indirect questions is a versatile way to frame inquiries politely and clearly. It's a key part of effective communication, especially when you want to sound respectful or formal. This connects to our overall theme of mastering question forms to enhance clarity and politeness in English.